Welcome back, viewers. You're watching WION World is One. This is World DNA, the show that gets you ahead of the rest. I'm Shivan Janna.
And I'm Diksha Bisla, and on the show today, investigators at Delhi's Red Fort blast site reportedly recovered 2 live cartridges and samples of 2 types of explosives. We'll keep you up to speed on the investigations into the blast near Delhi's iconic Red Fort on the show today. Stay tuned.
And as elections in the Indian state of Bihar come to an end, exit poll predictions are out and they've started to roll out, suggesting one of the alliances will comfortably cross the majority mark. We'll bring you the details on that. Let's start with the headlines.
Investigators at Delhi's Red Fort blast site reportedly recovered 2 live cartridges and samples of 2 types of explosives, including ammonium nitrate. Items have been sent to Forensic Science Laboratory for detailed analysis.
India strongly rejects allegations by Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif that New Delhi was behind the suicide bombing in Islamabad that killed 12 people. India calls it Pakistan's desperate diversionary ploys.
Colombian President Gustavo Petro pauses all U.S. intelligence exchange in response to Washington's bombing of multiple alleged drug trafficking vessels in Caribbean and Pacific, which have killed at least 76 people.
The world's largest aircraft carrier, USS Gerald R. Ford, arrives in Latin America, escalating US military buildup. Venezuela has warned could trigger a full-blown conflict as it announced its own massive deployment.
Trump declares victory as an effort to end the longest ever U.S. government shutdown as it heads to the final vote and rival Democrats tear themselves apart over deal. House of Representatives is set to vote on spending bill today.
French President Emmanuel Macron warns that any Israeli plans for annexation in the West Bank would be a red line and would provoke a European reaction. His remarks come as Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas visits Paris.
Dozens of indigenous protesters clashed with security guards at the climate summit in Brazil's Belém in a rare outbreak of violence at the annual UN Climate Conference to draw attention to the plight of indigenous people.
Search operation continues in Georgia after a Turkish military cargo plane with 20 people on board crashes near Azerbaijan border. Plane had taken off from Azerbaijan and was on its way back to Turkey when it crashed.
The U.S. Supreme Court extends emergency stay, allowing the Trump administration to withhold roughly $4 billion in nutrition programs' food aid funds this month amid a historic federal shutdown and court battles over nationwide hunger relief.
Portugal striker Cristiano Ronaldo confirms that the 2026 World Cup is his last. The 40-year-old, who has scored 953 goals for club and country levels, says that he plans to retire from football within the next 1 or 2 years.
standing near the location of the blast site.
एक स्लो मूविंग व्हीकल जो रेड लाइट की तरफ आके रुका था, उसमें एक ये एक्सप्लोजन हुआ है.
A lot of investigation agencies are here. It's all hands on deck. The entire area has remained cordoned off. There are fire engines, fire brigades, police personnel have barricaded the entire area.
And the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi will chair the Cabinet Committee on Security CCS meeting, and the Cabinet meeting today as probe into the blast near Red Fort in Delhi continues.
Well, at least 8 were killed and several others were injured in the explosion on Monday. Home Minister Amit Shah has formally handed over the investigation from the Delhi police to the National Investigation Agency, directing it to submit a detailed report at the earliest. He has also instructed the Forensic Science Laboratory to closely match the samples which were collected from the blast site.
Sources in the FSL said that the team investigating the blast has recovered 2 live cartridges and samples of 2 different types of explosives. As per sources, during the inspection, both live cartridges were found directly from the blast site and have been sent for detailed forensic analysis.
Also, investigators collected possible trace of ammonium nitrate and another unidentified explosive substance, the nature of which will be confirmed after laboratory testing. Initial findings indicate the car explosion was not a typical suicide blast, but was instead triggered in panic by the suspect.
Dr. Muzammil Ahmad Ganai from Pulwama was arrested first, leading to the arrest of Dr. Majid Rathar from Kazigund. And police sources said that Umar Nabi, a third doctor who went missing after the arrests, is the likely bomber and the person captured on CCTV footage in the Hyundai i20. CCTV footage from earlier in the day shows the car coming out of the parking lot minutes before it exploded barely half a kilometer away.
Well, sources told ANI that the suspect did not follow the usual pattern of a suicide car bombing. He neither rammed the car into a target nor collided intentionally. Agency sources said the vehicle was still moving when the blast occurred, and the bomb, which was premature and not fully developed, did not create a crater on explosion, and no shrapnel or projectiles were all found there.
All right, our correspondent Dharamjot Kaur is joining us on the broadcast. Dharam, what we've just learnt now, that it wasn't a usual suicide bombing. There was no target in place, no shrapnel being found. All right, I think we'll try to reconnect with Dharam, who's there who's been tracking this very closely from ground zero. But Diksha, what we've just learnt here is that the suspect did not follow the usual pattern of suicide car bombings. He neither rammed the car into a target nor collided intentionally. And this region, Old Delhi, in front of Red Fort, it is extremely populated. Any turn in any other direction, if that blast would have happened even meters away from where it actually did, the death toll would have been a far different number.
Absolutely, Shivan. And as per the sources, the team investigating the blast has now recovered 2 live cartridges and samples of 2 different types of explosives over there. And as per the sources, during the inspection, both live cartridges were found directly from the blast site. And now they have been sent for a detailed forensic analysis.
Right, and let's go back to Dharam, who's joined us. I think we've been able to reconnect that line. Dharam, this doesn't seem like a usual blast. Is it suggesting that it wasn't really a planned blast? It perhaps happened in haste or in panic. It did not follow the usual course of other suicide bombings that have been studied in the past?
Well, Shivan, again, it's very early to say at this point of the investigation, because all of these are probable assumptions that are being made. None of this has been confirmed officially by the investigating agencies. But again, how we're seeing the entire trajectory of this progress, that is the kind of line of assumption that is being taken at this point. Again, I'd like to reiterate, it's way too early to say anything, because this is just speculation at this point. This is a probable angle. There will be many others that are being investigated again. And this is something that even the Union Home Minister had pointed on the first day itself, that all possible angles are going to be probed to try and reach the bottom of this matter. But this has been the conversation since yesterday, Shivan. We've been talking about this for a very long time, about how they are trying to understand where exactly, number one, this explosive material came from. Now that they have found two different kinds of sample at the blast site, clearly there's going to be a forensic analysis to determine if at all there is any connection with the modules that have been busted just hours before the explosion took place on Monday. So we're talking about the Faridabad module over here. Again, all of these dots have not been directly connected as of now, but they're going to try and see if at all there is a connection, not just between the substance that has been found, but between the people, the suspects, the persons of interest who were apprehended and are being questioned. So a lot is happening, Shivan, simultaneously. There's CCTV footage that is being combed through. There's a lot of samples that are being sent for forensic analysis. There are a lot of persons of interest also who are being questioned simultaneously. So how all of this information comes together and how it gets connected to the explosion, what was the nature of it, what was the intensity of it, what was the reason behind it, and did it really go as per plan or was it something else altogether? All of these are questions that we will find answers to eventually, but at this point it's speculation and an assumption on the basis of how things are opening up gradually.
Understood.
Absolutely. Dharanjot, and a lot of questions remain unanswered. We know now that Home Minister Amit Shah has formally handed over the investigation from the Delhi police to the NIA. And it has directed it to submit a detailed report at the earliest. Now, the question on everybody's mind is, what next?
Well, absolutely, Diksha. That's the point. In fact, yesterday, even at the site of the blast, when the NIA took over the investigation, there were more personnel from the forensics team and other investigating officials who appeared. They also increased the area that had earlier been cordoned off. So clearly, they're trying to, number one, try and understand how far an impact did the explosion have, because we've seen from the harrowing visuals that emerged on Monday and even later on Tuesday, the kind of impact across even markets nearby that felt the intensity of the blast, the kind of damage that vehicles around have suffered, of course the tragic loss of life that has happened at the explosion site. But again, the area of investigation has increased. The area of even the expansion into different persons of interest who are being linked to each other. The investigating agencies are truly trying to understand if at all there is a nexus, how far-reaching is this nexus, what kind of explosives were used, if at all that is the nature of the explosion. A lot of questions are unanswered, but there is an expectation that after a preliminary report, within a few days, there will be a final report that is going to be submitted to the government. The NIA, we know, did take over the investigation formally yesterday. So there are going to be developments in the coming few days.
Dharam, thanks so much for getting us all those details. And just to let our viewers know that the visuals that you saw on screen, that area outside Red Fort doesn't look like this. It's barricaded. Otherwise, that is a absolutely busy street. And this is only because it has been barricaded. Otherwise, any part in Old Delhi is what, as it is called, Purani Delhi, it is extremely crowded. Any other direction in which that car would have gone, we would have been seeing a very different kind of a disaster. That was Dharam getting us all the details, who's been tracking all those developments from ground zero, and we will continue to bring you all the updates as the investigation agencies continue their probe.
All right, now shifting our focus to West Asia, violence continues to escalate in the Palestinian territories.
And this is as Israeli settlers, they target several villages in the occupied West Bank region. Several Israeli settlers launched violent assaults on villages located at the Beit Lid region in northern West Bank. Palestinians at this village in East Tulkarem could be seen inspecting a burning truck that had been set ablaze during the violent attacks. According to the Israeli police, at least 4 people have been arrested in connection with the incident so far.
Well, the Israeli military said that troops have been dispatched after mass Israeli civilians attacked Palestinians, while also damaging the property in the villages. Reports suggest that around 200 masked Israeli settlers carried out an assault on the Beit Lid village in 2 groups.
Now, as things appear grim in the West Bank, Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas held talks with French President Emmanuel Macron. In a joint statement, the French President Macron warned Israel that any plan of annexing the West Bank would be a red line. Macron also said that France will form a joint committee with the Palestinian Authority to draw up a new constitution for Palestine.
As I said earlier, plans for partial or total annexation, whether legal or de facto, constitute a red line to which we will respond strongly with our European partners if they are implemented. In this regard, we discussed with President Abbas the implementation of reforms by the Palestinian Authority. The priority is to hold free, transparent, and democratic presidential and general elections throughout the Palestinian territories, including East Jerusalem.
And following, the Palestinian President Abbas reaffirmed his commitment to carry out all the reforms.
And this while also promising to hold general elections.
Mr. President, dear friend, I reaffirm our commitment to honor all the promises and reforms mentioned in our letter addressed to you and to the co-presidency of the International Peace Conference, including the holding of presidential and parliamentary elections after the end of the war.
Meanwhile, the United Nations has accused Israel of blocking syringes and other baby essentials from entering Gaza. The United Nations Children's Fund, better known as UNICEF, has said that it is facing serious challenges in transporting 1.6 million syringes and solar-powered refrigerators into Gaza. The syringes are part of the United Nations Children's Vaccination Campaign.
The biggest problem yet that UNICEF is trying to tackle right now is to get syringes and solar-powered refrigerators into Gaza that were procured months ago. We have bought 1.6 million syringes. The vast majority are still outside Gaza. The auto-disabled syringes and other critical supplies have been blocked or are awaiting custom clearance since August 2025. Both the syringes and the solar direct drive refrigerators are considered dual use by Israel. And these items are, we're finding very hard to get them through clearances and inspections, and yet they are urgent. Many of our services rely on the consistent flow of supplies, including for this vaccination campaign.
Now, the battle for Pokrovsk reaches a breaking point. Russia deploys 150,000 soldiers into a grinding assault.
Assault that it's turning eastern Ukraine into an inferno. Well, President Zelensky says his forces are holding the line, but the Kremlin's war machine is tightening its noose around this strategic city. Ukraine digs in as Russia's war machine hammers the front line. Take a look at this next report for more details.
It's the fiercest battle Ukraine has faced in months. It's unfolding right now in Pokrovsk. Russian tanks and artillery are pounding Ukraine's battered front lines. Airstrikes thunder across the skyline. Kyiv says 150,000 Russian soldiers are leading the assault, a number not seen since the war's opening phase. Ukrainian military admits that Russian troops have entered Pokrovsk. Ukrainian forces dug deep in shattered villages around Pokrovsk and Dobropilya. They say they're holding firm, but the cost is brutal. These are the latest images showing intense fighting on the outskirts of Ukraine's Kupiansk. Further south, Russia launched drone strikes on Odessa, damaging energy and transport infrastructure, plunging parts of the city into darkness. Ukraine's Air Force claims to have downed most of the incoming drones, yet key fuel depots and rail links were hit. Zelensky faces an impossible equation. His troops battle exhaustion and dwindling ammunition while Putin feeds fresh battalions into the intense battle. The Russian strategy is brutal simplicity. Throw enough men at Ukrainian lines until something breaks. Winter approaches, adding another danger to Ukraine's fight. Frozen ground will favor Russian armored advances. Ukraine's defenders know the coming weeks will determine whether the front lines will stand or fall. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
And Venezuela is deploying weapons to mount a guerrilla-style resistance and create its front in the event of a US air or ground attack.
Now, as per a Reuters report, the guerrilla-style defense, which the Venezuelan government has termed prolonged resistance, would involve small military units at more than 280 locations carrying out acts of sabotage and other guerrilla tactics. As per the report, the second strategy, called anarchization, would use the intelligence services and armed ruling party supporters to create disorder on the streets of capital Caracas and make Venezuela ungovernable for foreign forces.
Well, it is unclear when the government might deploy each of the tactics. And on the other hand, US officials have said that America's largest warship, the Gerald Ford aircraft carrier strike group, has moved into the Latin America region. President Donald Trump ordered the deployment of the Ford last month, adding to the 8 warships, a nuclear submarine and F-35 aircraft already in the Caribbean.
So far, US struck at least 18 vessels, which they claim are drug boats in the Eastern Pacific and the Caribbean. On Monday, US Secretary of War Pete Hegseth announced that the US military carried out 2 more lethal strikes on alleged 2 drug boats in the Eastern Pacific, killing 6 more people, and in total taking the toll in its controversial anti-narcotics campaign to 76. Venezuela's ally and friend, Russia, has denounced the US strikes as illegal and unacceptable.
I cannot finish my comment on Venezuela without stating our position on the unacceptability of the actions taken by the United States. Under the pretext of fighting drug trafficking, they are destroying boats, which they claim are carrying drugs, without any trial or investigation, and not just without a trial, but without presenting any facts to anyone. This is how, in general, lawless countries act, as well as those who consider themselves above the law.
Well, as per an exclusive CNN report, the United Kingdom is no longer sharing intelligence with US about suspected drug trafficking vessels in the Caribbean because it does not want to be complicit in US military strikes and believes that the attacks are illegal.
Now, for more on this, our correspondent Susan has sent us this report from New York.
Tensions are spiking between Washington and Caracas after the arrival of the U.S. aircraft carrier Gerald Ford in the Caribbean. The Pentagon says that the strike group carrying about 4,000 sailors and tactical aircraft is part of an anti-drug and homeland security operation. But Venezuela is accusing the United States of plotting to overthrow the Maduro government. The Trump administration has also deployed forces across nearby nations, including Puerto Rico as well as Panama. In response, Venezuela's defense minister announced large-scale military preparations, mobilizing ground, air, and naval as well as missile units, along with police and civilian militias. The question now on everyone's mind is whether or not this standoff will turn into the region's next major flashpoint. Susan Tehrani reporting from New York for WION World is One.
And with that, it's time for us to slip into a very short break on World DNA.
Don't go anywhere. Coming up afterwards is India, which strongly rejects allegations by Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif that New Delhi is behind the suicide bombing in Islamabad that killed 12 people. India calls it Pakistan's desperate, diversionary ploys. We'll bring you the full statement and all the details that follow.
Also on the other side, as elections in the Indian state of Bihar come to an end, exit polls predictions have started to roll out, suggesting that one of the alliances will comfortably cross the majority mark. We'll get you all the details on the other side of World DNA. Stay tuned. You're watching WION World is One.
India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is One.
जंगल राज वालों ने सत्याग्रह की इस पुण्य भूमि को डकैतों का गढ़ बना दिया था।
लालू जी अपने बेटे को मुख्यमंत्री बनाना चाहते और सोनिया जी अपने बेटे को प्रधानमंत्री बनाना चाहते।
20 साल एनडीए को मौका मिला, तेजस्वी को केवल 20 महीने ही दीजिए।
अगर आप कहोगे नरेंद्र मोदी जी आप ऐसा ड्रामा करो वोट के लिए, वो कर देंगे। लालू नीतीश मोदी तीनों चल गए तो कौन बचा?
राष्ट्रीय स्वयंसेवक संघ. To some, it's an extreme ideology. To others, it's the very soul of India. To some, it's rebellion. To others, it's a principle of nation building. Coming soon to challenge perceptions in RSS centenary year, Kesariya at 100.
The earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. To some, it's an extreme ideology. To others, it's the very soul of India. To some, it's rebellion. To others, it's a principle of nation building. Coming soon to challenge perceptions in RSS centenary year, Kesariya at 100.
WION, India's global voice. The channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is One.
Welcome back, viewers. You're watching World DNA with Diksha. I'm Shivan. Lots more to discuss. Let's start with the headlines.
Investigators at Delhi's Red Fort blast site reportedly recovered 2 live cartridges and samples of 2 types of explosives, including ammonium nitrate. Items have been sent to Forensic Science Laboratory for detailed analysis.
India strongly rejects allegations by Pakistani Prime Minister that New Delhi is behind the suicide bombing in Islamabad that killed 12 people. India calls it Pakistan's desperate diversionary ploys.
Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro signs into law a new national defense framework, ordering immediate activation of integral defense commanders to unify civilian and military forces amid tensions with the US.
Colombian President Gustavo Petro pauses all US intelligence exchange in response to Washington's bombings of multiple alleged drug trafficking vessels in the Caribbean and the Pacific, which have killed at least 76 people.
Trump declares victory as an effort to end the longest ever US government shutdown as it heads to the final vote, and rival Democrats tear themselves apart over the deal. House of Representatives is set to vote on spending bill today.
French President Emmanuel Macron warns that any Israeli plans for annexation in the West Bank would be a red line and would provoke a European reaction. His remarks come as Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas visits Paris.
Dozens of indigenous protesters clashed with security guards at climate summit in Brazil's Belém in a rare outbreak of violence at the annual UN climate conference to draw attention to the plight of indigenous people.
Dow Jones hits a record closing high as investors rotate from tech to value stocks, while the Nasdaq slips amid AI trade weakness. Core Weave and Nvidia declines and concerns over evaluations and slowing private sector job growth.
Lorenzo Musetti earns his maiden win at the year-end ATP finals. The world number 9 battles past Australian Alex de Minaur in Turin. Leaders of the Pakistani Taliban offshoot Jamaat-ul-Ahrar and Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan have rejected claims linking them to suicide bombing in Islamabad that killed 12 people.
Jamaat-ul-Ahrar's senior leader, Sarbakaf Muhammad, and TTP spokesperson Muhammad Khurasani, they issued separate statements denying any involvement in the Islamabad attack that happened yesterday. This is after the Pakistani authorities blamed Jamaat-ul-Ahrar for the bombing, saying that the Pakistani Taliban splinter group had claimed responsibility for the attack in a statement. But shortly after, Sarbakaf Muhammad, the commander from the group, sent WhatsApp messages insisting that the group had not made any such claim.
Furthermore, the TTP also issued a statement distancing itself from the attack. Its spokesman, Mohammad Khurasani, said that Tehreek-e-Taliban has no connection with the explosion.
At least 12 people were killed and 36 others were injured on Tuesday afternoon in a suicide attack outside the district court buildings in capital Islamabad. The explosion occurred at the entrance of the court complex, crowded at the time with litigants and lawyers.
Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif has claimed that the suicide blast was carried out by the Pakistani Taliban and blamed Indian-sponsored terrorist proxies for the attack. He also alleged New Delhi's role in Monday's attack on a cadet college in Wana, near the border with Afghanistan.
India strongly rejected Pakistan Prime Minister's allegations, labeling them baseless and unfounded. MEA spokesperson Randhir Jaiswal said that the international community will not be misled by Pakistan's desperate diversionary ploys. Meanwhile, United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres condemned the acts of violence and terrorism following the suicide bombing in Islamabad and called for a full investigation.
The Secretary General condemns acts of violence and terrorism in the strongest terms. He reiterates that all perpetrators of terrorism must be held accountable, and he calls for a full investigation.
I'm standing near the location of the blast site.
एक स्लो मूविंग व्हीकल जो रेड लाइट की तरफ आके रुका था, उसमें एक ये एक्सप्लोजन हुआ है.
A lot of investigation agencies are here. It's all hands on deck. The entire area has remained cordoned off. There are fire engines, fire brigades, police personnel have barricaded the entire area.
The deadly blast near Red Fort has triggered a multi-pronged investigation. An important part of the ongoing probe is the trail that investigating agencies are establishing on the car.
Of course, the car that exploded on Monday evening. And before we talk about Monday's trail, on your screens is the footage of a white Hyundai i20 that is seen on October 29th. The car was spotted in the state of Haryana at a pollution control station at 4:20 p.m. in the evening local time. Now, the car number is visible as HR 26CE7674 and was undergoing a pollution check after being purchased. 3 people were in the car on that day.
Now, coming to the day of the tragedy, the 10th of November, this is what investigation of CCTV footage has revealed so far. On Monday at 8:13 a.m. local time, the car was seen at a toll booth in Badarpur, from where it entered Delhi's borders. This is from the Faridabad side. Shortly after, at 8:20 a.m., it was spotted at a fuel station in Okhla industrial area. The car was seen in several other locations like Kashmiri Gate and Daryaganj. And then hours later, at around 3:19 p.m. in the afternoon, the white i20, it entered a public parking lot near the Red Fort complex. The car remained inside for more than 3 hours and then exited minutes before the explosion. The car exited at 6:48 p.m. and the explosion happened at 6:52. The blast occurred near the Red Fort as the car approached a traffic light.
Well, the CCTV footage from earlier in the day shows that the car was coming out of the parking lot minutes before it exploded, barely half a kilometer away. The footage shows only one person in the car, but probing agencies are yet to confirm the identity of the car driver. Sources say that this could be Dr. Umar, the same man that Jammu and Kashmir police has been on the lookout for.
The deadly blast near Red Fort has killed at least 8 people and injured many others. The explosion's impact gutted several vehicles, with many present in the area feeling the intensity of the blast.
All right, elections in the Indian state of Bihar have come to an end, with the state registering a record 68.52% turnout in the second phase.
Good turnout is always good news, but all parties are taking credit for it at this point. Well, exit polls now suggest that the ruling NDA will comfortably cross the majority mark. 5 exit polls have predicted a complete sweep for the NDA. Exit polls by Dainik Bhaskar and Matriz have projected the NDA to secure anywhere between 145 to 167 seats, while the opposition Grand Alliance, that is the Mahagathbandhan, would struggle. It could struggle to cross the 100 mark. This is as per exit polls. Similarly, polls by People's Insight and People's Pulse, they predict a comfortable majority for the NDA and the opposition Grand Alliance, which could stay under 102 seats. However, all 4 exit polls, they suggest that debutant Prashant Kishore and his Jan Suraj party will struggle to make any mark, with the party predicted to win only up to 5 seats. As per exit polls by JVC, Economic Times, NDA could win anywhere between 135 to 150 seats, while the opposition could get 88 to 103 seats, and others may get 3 to 7 seats.
Right, but remember, exit polls are not the final word. In the last two assembly elections, the exit polls failed to project an accurate picture of the final outcome. In the last assembly election in 2020, an average of 11 exit polls had projected the opposition alliance as the winner. But on the day of the result, the NDA had managed to retain power.
A strange voice from deep space. A mysterious object named 3I Atlas has just sent a signal.
Well, aimed directly at Earth, it is cosmic coincidence or the first whisper that something not of this world. Our next story explains what's this radio signal which has the internet abuzz. Take a look.
It happened in the dead of night. On October 24th, astronomers tuned the Meerkat radio telescope for a gamble. The radio telescope in South Africa's Karoo Desert detected what may be the first microwave whisper from an interstellar object. The astronomers wanted answers from interstellar darkness. What they caught was beyond expectation. 2 razor-sharp radio frequencies pierced the noise. Not a human message, but pure evidence of strange water chemistry. 3I Atlas, an object racing through the solar system at 2,44600 km per hour. Only the third interstellar visitor ever recorded. Interestingly, the signal was discovered 5 days before the cosmic object reached its closest pass to the Sun. For nearly 11 minutes, radio receivers recorded a consistent, measurable signal, not random, not noise repeating at precise intervals. The signal's origin appears to coincide exactly with the path of 3I Atlas, which is now leaving the inner solar system. The discovery has reignited an age-old question: are we truly alone? The signal doesn't carry language, code, or any recognizable pattern of intelligence, but its timing, strength, and precision have baffled researchers. Some suggest it could be natural, perhaps a resonance triggered by solar radiation or metallic compounds inside the object. Others, more daringly, say the signal's geometry is too clean to be random. For now, scientists agree on one point: it doesn't prove alien technology. Not yet. But the mystery deepens as 3I Atlas races beyond our reach, leaving behind only echoes and questions. Somewhere in that silence between the stars, a voice was heard, and for the first time, Earth listened back.
Huge developments in Washington. Congress is moving to end the longest U.S. federal government shutdown in history.
But then there are key issues which remain unresolved, which includes food aid for millions and aviation disruptions, which is ahead of Thanksgiving holiday, and an unexpected provision tied to a political investigation. The United States House of Representatives returned to Washington after a 42-day break, with lawmakers voting on a compromise deal aimed at reopening the federal government. The bill would restore funding until January 30th, 2026, putting off the next showdown, but adding to the U.S. federal debt, now about $38 trillion.
And congratulations to you and to John and to everybody on a very big victory. We're opening up our country. Should have never been closed. Should have never been closed.
The deal also ensures that the food assistance program known as Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP, will remain funded until September 30th, 2026.
We don't like being pawns. We don't like, and this is including myself, we don't like to be called the swamp or to be used in anyone's political games, no matter what side you're on. Because I want people to know how much the federal government impacts lives. We impact so many lives, but you just don't see it. It's like unsung heroes.
The Supreme Court of the United States extended a pause on a lower court order that would have forced the Trump administration to immediately restore full funding for SNAP, affecting roughly 42 million low-income Americans. Specifically, about $4 billion of SNAP benefits remain on hold while the legal fight continues. And this pause is set to expire on Thursday, heightening pressure on Congress to act swiftly.
I've been living in my car as a federal worker for 3 years here in the DC area. At least having food security is one of the main lifelines that I have and that I can still count on, from the wonderful generosities of the charities here in the capital area.
On the economic front, the shutdown's ripple effects are hitting the aviation sector pretty hard. The Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, has mandated flight cuts at 40 major airports following a surge in cancellations. Over 8,000 flights were cancelled in the last 4 days, and on top of 4,000 earlier in the shutdown. A growth in bookings for the upcoming Thanksgiving holiday has slowed to just about 1%, which is down sharply from expectations. Analysts estimate the cuts may cost airlines around $10 million per day, and if these conditions persist until Thanksgiving, losses could climb to $45 million per day, excluding lost revenue from travelers who cancel altogether.
So if the government doesn't open, if the House doesn't do its job, I've had questions about what happens for Thanksgiving. There's a lot of Thanksgiving travel. What's going to happen during that time frame? I'm going to tell you, we are not going to get to Thanksgiving. You're going to see this Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Big disruption thus far, massively more disruption as we come into the weekend if the government doesn't open. It is going to radically slow down.
There's a surprising twist in the funding deal. A controversial clause tucked into the bill to end the US government shutdown is sparking outrage. The legislation now advancing through Congress grants 8 Republican senators whose phone records were ordered to testify in the January 6th United States Capitol attack investigation the right to sue the US Department of Justice for up to $500,000 each, plus legal fee per violation of the newly defined rule. Democrats call it a cash bonus for political allies.
And for more on this, our correspondent Susan Tehrani has sent us this report from New York. Listen in.
Will lawmakers finally reopen the government? Well, there seems to be optimism after bipartisan votes in the Senate advanced a funding bill. The measure would restore key services like food aid, as well as federal worker pay, though it leaves out the Democrats' key demand, which was extended health subsidies, the main culprit of the current shutdown. Meanwhile, the FAA has already ordered a reduction in U.S. flights, and officials caution that prolonged gridlock could cause widespread cancellations, even more than we see right now. A reminder of the growing costs of political stalemate. Susan Tehrani reporting from New York for WION World this one.
A landmark court ruling in Germany could change the way artificial intelligence is built and trained.
OpenAI, the maker of ChatGPT, has been found guilty of using copyrighted song lyrics without permission to train its AI models. Well, Munich court has ruled that OpenAI unlawfully trained its chatbot on lyrics from 9 German songs, including several major hits by German musicians. Herbert Grönemeyer, the case against OpenAI was filed by Gemma, Germany's leading music rights organization, representing more than 100,000 composers, lyricists, and publishers. Gemma has accused OpenAI of systematically using protected works without authorization or payment. The court agreed, ruling that both the memorization of lyrics within ChatGPT's model and their reproduction in user outputs amount to copyright infringement. OpenAI has been ordered to pay the damages, though the amount has not yet been disclosed. Meanwhile, the company has rejected the ruling, saying its model does not store or copy specific data. Instead, it generates responses from patterns which are learned during training. OpenAI further insists that users and not the AI are responsible for any content which has been produced. According to Reuters, OpenAI plans to appeal the decision, and this is the latest chapter in a growing global backlash over how AI systems use and learn from copyrighted work. And shifting focus to the world of sports, Cristiano Ronaldo has confirmed the 2026 World Cup will be his last.
The 40-year-old also said that he would retire from football in 1 or 2 years. Next year's World Cup will take place in Canada, Mexico and the United States from 11th of June. It will be Ronaldo's 6th World Cup during his 22-year international career. Ronaldo has helped Portugal win the European Championship in 2016 and the UEFA Nations League twice. However, the closest he has come to winning the World Cup was in 2006 when Portugal reached the semi-finals before losing to France, then to Germany in the third place playoff. And Portugal are yet to qualify for next year's tournament but will secure their spot if they beat Republic of Ireland on Thursday.
Ronaldo is the all-time leading men's international goal scorer with 143 goals. The Portugal forward has scored over 950 goals in clubs and country and is also chasing the career milestone of 1,000 goals. The former Manchester United and Real Madrid star said last week that he would retire soon. But on Tuesday, he confirmed it will likely happen in the next couple of years. Earlier this year, Ronaldo had extended his contract with Saudi Arabian side Al Nassr until 2027.
And in an auction that could raise around $1.3 million, memorabilia from the iconic band Rolling Stones is set to be up for sale.
Well, more than 185 items, including posters, outfits and tickets, are set to be auctioned at Dallas-based heritage auction Satisfaction, the Rolling Stones treasures from the Alizeri collection.
While there are several items of interest, Rolling Stones co-founder Brian Jones' Harmony Stratotone electric guitar is leading the sale with an estimate of $200,000 to $400,000.
The leading lot in the sale is Brian Jones's Harmony Stratotone guitar that he acquired in the early 1960s. It was his first electric guitar, and it's what he played at their very early gigs, on their demos, and even on their first single, a cover of Chuck Berry's Come On. What's fascinating about this guitar, it is a budget guitar. This is not a high-end instrument. This is what, somebody working class in the early 60s would have been able to afford. So it's a very humble, modest instrument that paved the way for one of the greatest bands of all time.
All right, and another interesting item that's set to go under the hammer is an album sleeve. It's a 12-inch record that simply says, "We love you," with the brand's name written on it. Many of the items that will be up for sale are from the early years after the group's formation in the early 1960s.
Other items include a fringed suede jacket Jones wore for his final live performance with the band in 1968, and jackets worn by Mick Jagger and guitarist Keith Richards. While the auction will be held on the 4th of December, highlights of the sale are already on show in London until November 28th.
Well, that's all we had for you on World DNA today.
And before we slip into a short break, here's a look at all the climate stories making headlines across the world. This is WION World is One. News and updates continue with us. Come right back.
जंगल राज वालों ने सत्याग्रह की इस पुण्य भूमि को डकैतों का गढ़ बना दिया था।
लालू जी अपने बेटे को मुख्यमंत्री बनाना चाहते और सोनिया जी अपने बेटे को प्रधानमंत्री बनाना चाहते।
20 साल एनडीए को मौका मिला, तेजस्वी को केवल 20 महीने ही दीजिए।
अगर आप कहोगे नरेंद्र मोदी जी आप ऐसा ड्रामा करो वोट के लिए, वो कर देंगे।
लालू नीतीश मोदी तीनों चल गए तो कौन बचा?
राष्ट्रीय स्वयंसेवक संघ. To some, it's an extreme ideology. To others, it's the very soul of India. To some, it's rebellion. To others, it's a principle of nation building. Coming soon to challenge perceptions in RSS Centenary Year, Kesariya at 100.
जंगल राज वालों ने सत्याग्रह की इस पुण्य भूमि को डकैतों का गढ़ बना दिया था।
लालू जी अपने बेटे को मुख्यमंत्री बनाना चाहते और सोनिया जी अपने बेटे को प्रधानमंत्री बनाना।
20 साल एनडीए को मौका मिला, तेजस्वी को केवल 20 महीने ही दीजिए।
अगर आप कहोगे नरेंद्र मोदी जी आप ऐसा ड्रामा करो वोट के लिए, वो कर देंगे।
लालू नीतीश मोदी तीनों चल गए तो कौन बचा?
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, world is one. From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
Welcome back to WION World is One. You're watching Speed News with me, Vidul Kathuria. Let's get started. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi is set to chair a cabinet committee on security as investigations continue into the blast near Delhi's Red Fort. Home Minister Amit Shah has formally handed over the case from the Delhi police to the National Investigation Agency, instructing them to submit a detailed report as soon as possible. Investigators at Delhi's Red Fort blast site have reportedly recovered 2 live cartridges and samples of 2 types of explosives, including ammonium nitrate. The items have been sent to a forensic science laboratory for detailed analysis. India has strongly rejected allegations by Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif that New Delhi was behind the Islamabad suicide bombing that killed 12 people, calling the claims a desperate diversionary tactic by Pakistan.